Welcome.
Hi.
Hi, as everyone trickles in.
So exciting.
Hi, everyone. We'll let everyone trickle in. We're going to get started right on time. Awesome. While everyone trickles in, I would love to hear from all of you to get started. Yeah, I would love to know how many of you are A, currently going through a career change or transition, B, thinking of a career change, or C, recently went through a career switch in the last 6 months or a year. We can post this in the chat as well. Great. Anyone? Awesome. Yeah, as we get ready. Awesome. I think everyone's still trickling in. Let us know if you're going through a transition. You can post this in the chat. Oh, the chat's disabled. Thank you.
Ooh.
Okay, sorry about that. How many of you are going through one of these? Currently going through a change or transition, thinking of a career change, or recently went through a career switch in the last year? Awesome. Okay. All right. So today we, thank you everyone for submitting your answers to the question. Let me just see if people are responding. Great.
Ooh.
Are we enabled? Okay. We're gonna get started. We'll allow people to kind of trickle in. So if you've recently experienced or considering a career change or transition, you are not alone. According to a recent Gallup report on millennials, 21% of working millennials surveyed report changing jobs within the past year. Half of the millennials surveyed also predicted leaving their present company a year from now. So in the wake of the mass layoffs we've been seeing, some economic uncertainty, I can imagine many of you are either forced towards a career change that maybe you didn't plan for, or you're contemplating a career switch, or even actively cushioning your careers by adding, kind of adding different options around. Now, I would love for us to, jump in by introducing our speakers and welcoming everyone today to our webinar on navigating career transitions. For those of you that I don't know, I'm Yolanda. I'm the founder and CEO of Uncommon. We're a professional network for women in leadership. A little bit about my background. So, and this topic, I think I'm someone who's led a pretty uncommon career path. I started my career in the music industry, found that really fun and exciting to kind of travel the world and do something quite creative. But then ultimately was very purpose-driven, studied thinking I was going to work for the UN or the World Bank, did a short stint in international development, and then pivoted into tech, working for some growth stage tech companies like Uber and Deliveroo, because I really believed in technology's ability to transform lives. Now and then 2 years ago, I launched my own startup, Uncommon, that's celebrating its 2-year anniversary this week. I'm very excited to introduce our guest speakers today. We have Mel Ng, who is the co-founder of Bravely, where she's supercharging therapy with better mental health tech. Welcome, Mel.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us from Japan today. Thank you. I'm also excited to introduce my friend and uncommon member, and who's named Charlotte Teo. She's a brand consultant and founder of Wassup Charlie, a life coaching consultancy practice where she coaches women to define success on their own terms. Welcome, Charlotte. So great to be on this panel with you.
Hello, thank you for having me. It's really nice to meet you, Mel.
So before we get started, some housekeeping. If you have any questions for Mel, Charlotte, or myself, or if there's anything from the discussion that resonates with you, feel free to type them in at any time in the Q&A. We'll get to your questions during our Q&A session at the end of the webinar. If you're excited to be here, made time for it, and want to spread the word, feel free to take a picture or a screen grab. You can share it on social media and tag us. We're at Hey Uncommon on Instagram or at This Is Uncommon on LinkedIn. Let's dive in. So we did a little poll initially. You know, looking at everybody here, you've recently, we want to kind of dive into, we want to dive into where we last left off. I would start off maybe with some questions for our speakers. I'd love to hear both of your experiences with your career pivots. Could you maybe walk through some of the various twists and turns and pivots your own careers have taken? I'll start with you, Charlotte.
Sure. So I'm going to set some context first on what my dream was as a child. I wanted to be a celebrity princess, lawyer, tie-tie, baker, cafe owner. Maybe not all at once, but hopefully at some point, going through all six. Obviously, none of that. Some may say that I am a tie-tie now. I am certainly not, and I do not relish in the fact of being one anymore. But what happened in my career was didn't get into law school, which is what I wanted to do. God really saved me from having to read for 4 years, textbooks for 4 years, and I found kind of my groove in business school, and I really enjoyed marketing. Left university, still not really knowing what I wanted to do, but decided that if I wanted to work, I wanted to have fun while having it and wanted to become a buyer. And so I joined the wonderful world of retail, got interested in branding, went into that, helping a friend out in the construction industry, and left that to join Tupperware, my first MNC organization, where I played with products every day and I could cook every day, and I met wonderful, wonderful people. I did regional marketing for them. Moved then into the real world, what I call the real world of marketing, where it's 360 marketing, digital marketing, PR, and all that, only after almost 10 years of my career. And that's where I started working in Nespresso, and then moved on to other names that we might be more familiar with, ESOP, AccuView, and then finally my last corporate marketing role was with Tyndall as the global marketing director. So I've had many, many twists and turns, all kind of in the same space of marketing, but very different portfolios, different industries. Obviously, all for different reasons, some valid, some not so valid, and we'll talk through a little bit more on that. Left my corporate marketing role last year, had a bit of an awakening moment in the beginning of last year, and decided that, hey, I want to help people and I want to help women at those points of transition. And so here I am, life coach and brand consultant with my own practice called Wassup Charlie. Very nice to meet you all.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. What about you, Mel?
That was a really cool story, Charlotte. So my story is also quite convoluted, although I definitely didn't have aspirations like Charlotte did. I think that would have been a really cool title, although I don't know how you would fit that on a business card. Um, so, so I started out wanting to be an author when I was a kid because I loved reading books. And then of course that sort of pivoted and grew over time. And I went to school, I went to do mass communications because I wanted to go into advertising, did my diploma in Polytechnic, and by the end of it realized that I did not actually want to go into the industry. I didn't like the lifestyle that came with it, where it was just a lot of work all the time, OT, just it didn't, I just couldn't imagine doing that for the rest of my life. And so when I graduated, I decided to start freelancing, doing design work. And at that point in time, I think I was about 19. So my parents were incredibly unhappy, as you can imagine, that I didn't want to get a real job and I didn't want to go to university and I didn't want to do all the things I was supposed to do. And I stuck to my guns and I continued freelancing, which gave me an opportunity to move to Vietnam, which is the first country I moved to when I was 20, which for anyone who's been there, you can imagine what a change that was from Singapore being so sort of organized and clean to just like the chaos. But I really loved it. And so I stayed, even though that job did not work out, because I found out that a 9 to 5 is just really not quite suitable for me, or maybe the other way around, I'm not suitable for a 9 to 5. And I just continued freelancing, which is when I discovered that I didn't actually have to be physically anywhere to do the work that I did. My clients didn't care as long as the work was good. It didn't matter where I was. If Antarctica had internet, they'd be like, yeah, whatever. You go, have fun, be cold, but just produce good work. And so I continued from there, and that's when I started a remote design agency. And we ended up working with lots of big clients like McDonald's and Samsung and Visa, during which I started to have to move away from designing, which was something that I really loved, towards running a company and doing sales, both things that I enjoyed a lot less at that point in time, especially since I was really shy and really socially anxious, but had to pick up the skills anyway and managed to grow the company, only to realize through the years that I really started to hate doing that, having to do sales, having that burden on my shoulders. And that's when I decided to change careers. It sounds a lot cleaner when I describe it this way, but it took a long time to figure out. And today, I'm the CEO of Bravely. So we work on mental health because mental health is something that I really, really struggle with. And then, of course, with a bit of a final plot twist that I'll throw into there, a few months after starting Bravely, I was actually diagnosed with leukemia. And it took a few years to recover from that. It's still a process of recovering from that. But that was also a pivot. But it was during which that I realized that I really did want to work in mental health. So we actually started the company and started working on the product from the hospital room, which I would not advise. But it was a clear sign of purpose for me. And once I started to get better, we just got right back down to it.
Wow, Mel, thank you so much for sharing so openly.
It's a long story, sorry.
No, it's I think a really amazing depiction of a life that's purpose-led and and one that is also heart-led. So thank you so much, Mel, for sharing your story. So my question for both of you, we often get this question in Uncommon is, how do I know when it's time to go? We see burnout as a telling indicator that the role or the environment isn't healthy for you, but there are other signs, obviously, before that that might show us that there's time for a change. Have you ever heard of bore out? It's a related phenomenon that's arguably just as damaging to your self-esteem and engagement at work, while burnout is chronic stress that is linked to overwork. Bore out is chronic boredom. It happens when you work in a demoralizing environment or feel under challenged at work for a prolonged period. For Mel, what do you know, like, how do you know when it's time for a career change? You know, what are some telling signs?
I sort of joke really often that I would like to switch careers and become a farmer, because somewhere in my head I think that that's easier. So it's a joke when you're having a hard day or things have been really challenging recently. But I find that if I have been saying that too often, that's a really good sign that something is not quite right. If I find that my goals are getting smaller in a way that's not about being a bit more realistic, but in terms of I just don't want to reach anymore. It's not worth the effort. I don't want to get up and put the hard work in to achieve these things because I don't really care about them anymore. I think once you have that feeling of like I don't care about this anymore, and it stays, you know, for too many days in a row, or too many months in a row, then that's a sign that you should listen to what's going on.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's like kind of those internal indicators as well. Thanks, Mel. For Charlotte, what are some of the first steps you'd advise someone who's contemplating a career change and maybe currently navigating a career transition?
Mm. This obviously comes from my own experience, and there's a lot of wisdom in the room as well. But I'll just share, I think what the first step would be is to kind of take yourself out of the situation, remove yourself out of that current context as much as you can, whether it's taking a day's break, a week off, like really pressing the pause button, whatever that means for you. And take the time to find out what's really driving this desire. Is it an annoying boss? Is it really something that's within you that has, you know, come up from before? I like to say that my current, I guess, career path has been 17 years in the making. It's as if I've always known that I wanted to work with women or with people in this aspect. And spending that time to find out what's important to you is really important. And from that place and from that point, it becomes so much easier to take that first step instead of having, you know, voices crowding you out like, oh, you should do this or you should do that. Like I've always imagined you to be a doctor. I've always imagined you to be a lawyer. Like all of these voices, push aside, bye-bye, go away, right? Like what is it that you were meant to do? I think it's super important. So with that, when you take the first step, then you know whether you're in alignment with what, you know, you feel is right or what you know is right.
Yeah.
Those are some of kind of my thoughts around it.
I think you really hit the nail, Charlotte, on the head around authenticity in a career pivot and this idea of also being proactive versus say reactive to change and taking, even if it's, you know, sometimes if it's unexpected, you might not plan for something, but even in that kind of what can feel like chaos of a change, you can still pause and really reflect on like, okay, what is it that I'm optimizing for ultimately? What is most important to me first and foremost, and then kind of act out of those places as well.
Yeah.
I often find, so shifting gears, I often find that the stories we see in the media of quitting and, you know, the bigger career changes, they can just be overly simplistic and sometimes reductive. We often overlook that like any big life change, there's also an emotional side to a career change. It's I'd broadly outline 3 phases. The first being a sense of guilt about leaving a previous employer or career, and kind of letting, I think careers also make up a big part of our identity as well. And next is adjusting your personal identity and that sense of self. I know when I left Deliveroo, like a big challenge for me was kind of letting go of like, oh, I'm a senior female leader in tech, and does anyone care about what I have to say now that I'm not anymore? And lastly is like letting go of those old routines, patterns, and habits as well. So I have a couple questions for each of you. For Charlotte, I'll start with you. What was the hardest part of your respective career changes, and what kept you going through that sort of period, that tumultuous period of change?
So I think I will speak about the most recent and I guess most drastic career change. There have been many before, and that is from the corporate marketing career to my current practice, which is in life coaching. And I think the hardest part was wrestling with self-doubt, thinking that I couldn't do it, or that if I did, it would just all go to, can I say shit? It would just all go to shit, right? Like it's like a death sentence. It feels like it was gonna be a death knell. And what really kept me going, I would say two things. My faith and the relationships around me that created safe spaces. One of them being Uncommon. Not trying to toot anybody's horn here, but this was real. Uncommon gave me that safe, there's a safety in the company of strangers. And that's what Uncommon gave me at the beginning of my journey. And coaching relationships that I had with other coaches was also another safe space. So I think allowing yourself to invest in these life-giving relationships allowing myself to invest in these life-giving relationships was key to overcoming this piece of self-doubt. Surrounding yourself with people who you know will have your back no matter what. And also realizing that you can do this for a year, and if it doesn't work out, hey, you still have your hands and your legs and your brain. And you can always go back to what you were doing, or you can just make banana bread and sell them. That's what I was thinking. But yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Charlotte, and thank you for the warm endorsement. I promise we didn't put that in the script. Thank you. But yeah, for Mel, you are a founder, something I can relate to, and someone who's opted for a path outside of the kind of traditional corporate path. Have you ever experienced career milestone FOMO or anything like that?
I think I had a bit of, especially when I first started out, because I was so young and most people that I knew were going through university, I felt a bit, not isolated, but I felt a bit alone in kind of what I was doing. But I think the thing that kept me quite firmly fixed on that path was really knowing what I didn't want to do. So a lot of people I find make a lot of life choices depending on what they want or what goals they have, this dream that they have. It's a lot of things that you want, and not enough people kind of make life decisions based off things that they don't want. And it's only until, a lot of people experience burnout and then they realize, okay, I don't actually want to do that. But I was always pretty stubborn growing up, much to my mom's upset. And I really stuck to my guns because I knew that, I didn't want to have to get up really early and be there Monday to Friday. It was just not the sort of thing that fit me. And so just being so sure of the things that I didn't want to do made it a lot easier to kind of stick to those things and not feel like I was missing out, because I knew very well the lifestyle that fitted me and the career that fitted me. And so if I ever had any FOMO, it typically wasn't to do with other people's careers. It was just, other like personal things in life that I think everybody goes through.
Yeah, oh, I hear you on that. It's kind of that, yeah, just trying to keeping up with the Joneses to a certain extent, and then coming back again to that authenticity of what is important to you. And I always think that I always have to tell myself that like a recipe for unhappiness is trying to live by other people's measure of success.
Yeah.
You figured that out as well. Thank you both. Thank you both. So we're now going to shift to our mid-webinar poll. We'll pull this up. So we've got a Menti poll that we're going to be doing. That's now in the chat. And what we're asking you today is, in one word, how would you describe your career story or trajectory? So we'll take a look at what comes up for everybody attending. Thanks, Sandhya. Organic, I like that. Okay, I think we're just collating everyone's answers. Thanks, Sarah. Doesn't seem to be sharing. I think we're gonna try. Okay, a little bit of technical challenges today. Okay, I don't think we're going to. Maybe at the end we can have a look and see what everybody's responses are. Somehow, I don't know. I'm not able to see them, sadly. But yeah, let's maybe try and present these at the end of the webinar. We're gonna move forward. If anyone wants to put it in the chat, we can also look at some there, but I saw organic popping up. Yeah, great. And then we can probably take a look at the Menti at the end of this. So shifting back to our topic, we're going to talk a little bit about a concept that I'm a big fan of is thinking of careers as a labyrinth and not a ladder. It's evident that career pivoting, shifting between roles, industries, even careers, is fast becoming the norm amongst professionals, especially during times of uncertainty, during profound changes, and seeing this kind of big upheaval in the workplace where there's an increased attention on mental health and burnout. Today, the way we work has also changed in some amazing and profound ways, broadening your career focus and professional identity. The concept of a portfolio career is no longer seen as abnormal. It's actually celebrated. Something I speak a lot about at Uncommon is, we at least like compared to say my parents' generation, it's very rare that we see a very linear career ladder where there's this kind of step-by-step, there's clear visibility and when you're going to get promoted, when you're, some companies have this, but a lot don't really have this anymore. And I really believe we should embrace the kind of squiggly nature and think about our careers as a labyrinth. Sometimes we don't have full visibility. Sometimes there's multiple paths that can take you to the same direction. And what you really need is a support system to help you get through that kind of those twists and turns of a labyrinth to really reflect to tap into your diverse strengths and rich potential. This is something I think that helped me a lot, is reframing the way I think about my career as I kind of move forward. I'd love to turn back to our wonderful speakers who I think I've learned so much from already. How have your career portfolios or non-linear careers really enriched you as an individual?
I'll go first.
Yeah.
I guess to your point also, Yolanda, this idea of having one career for the rest of your life, that was what our parents grew up with, right? It was to achieve stability. And I guess as we've moved, I guess we're from the generation that we were like a little bit in between, from stability to kind of like what I like to call curiosity, where you can make videos and make a career out of it, like the YouTubers and people on social media. Like, it's just completely flipped it on its head. And if you tell them to the stability workers or career people, they're going to be like, what? How? What? No, that's not possible. But hey, man, it's happening, right? And when, of course, growing up, there was a lot of pressure and perhaps judgment, unintentionally or intentionally, that you needed to decide by the time you were 21 or even at 18, decide exactly what you were going to do and go with that, and be forever ball and chain to this one thing, right? And I think for me, that was really scary. I think I couldn't decide on something because of that, and I didn't know that was fear. But to answer your question, so that's kind of like the reality and the context of it, right? Obviously, we're not living in that time anymore, but there's still remnants of that kind of idea of what a career should be. And I'm thankful that I can speak from this point now to say that I'm thankful for the career that I've had. Going through it, of course, was not easy. I would have comments from people like, "Oh, she's changing her job again, like changing her underwear." And I'll be like, yeah, okay, I'm changing for a reason. It's legit to me. What's it to you, right? And I firmly believe that no matter where you go, you will grow. It's how you choose what you want to learn from it. And I've gained so much knowledge, so much understanding what what makes brands tick, how each brand is so unique, successful in its own way. And the one thing that has carried me through all of these careers is relationships. I've just met they've been the most enriching, meeting new people and being friends till this day with these new people that I met from early on. And that's whatever it is, the bottom line is that the relationships have enriched me the most.
Thank you. No, I love that. I love the focus on I think sometimes in the working world, we overlook like the importance of solid relationships. Everyone wants to know your strategy and this, and actually, I strongly believe that relationships are such an important driver for your career outcomes. But I think you also touched on this point of stability and that intergenerational kind of shift. And I'm from Canada. My parents were immigrants, and it's similarly kind of optimizing for stability. And I always would say to them that that playbook takes you from point A to point B, but if I'm going to go from point B to point C, I'm probably going to need a different playbook. And I see that a lot actually with my friends in Singapore as well, is that sometimes our parents did so much to kind of get from that point A to point B, but now there is a kind of different playbook that is being written, which is, I think, super exciting. But yeah, Mel, I would love to hear from you as well. How has your kind of career portfolio, non-linear career, really enriched you?
I love everything that both of you are saying, and I have to add on and say I really agree with the generational shifts in terms of what is being valued. And I think that what the different generations value is really dependent on the environment in which they grew up. So, you know, kind of generally our grandparents' generation came from where there wasn't that stability. And so our parents' generation craves and has built that life to try and achieve that level of stability, and therefore given us more stability. And because we've had that, we're now stable enough to sort of pursue purpose. So I found that to be really a good explanation, at least for me personally, as to why there are different pressures across the generation. And something else that both of you have said as well is how important relationships are. And I would like to especially highlight, and I think that's because I'm an introvert, the relationship that you have with yourself has to evolve over time as well. Because at the end of the day, you know, it might be hard to drown out those external voices telling you their opinions, but you know, there's this phrase that I like that might be a bit depressing, but it says, you know, you're born alone, you live alone, and you die alone. And of course, we know that that's not totally true, but I think what it means is that your entire life experience, everything that you live and you go through, is through your lens. Like, you are the only person that gets to see all of that, and nobody else gets to see all of that. They don't get to see what happens behind closed doors. They don't get to see what happens in your mind. And so I would also really like to highlight the relationship that you have with yourself. Really, at the end of the day, has to be the driving force behind things, the person that you're doing things for. And for me personally, I got to that point only through really working on my mental health and really making sure that I was constantly analyzing what I was doing. You know, there was a lot of discussions, like you said, Yolanda, about strategies for how to advance careers. But when I was thinking about how I wanted to live my life and how I wanted to spend those days, the strategy became about what I wanted to achieve at the end of it, which was purpose and being content and being safe. And it was balancing those things that I wanted to find out more strategies and tactics to achieve those specific things. There are a lot of people, and I fell victim to this as well, thinking like, well, I'm going to work really hard and then I'm going to get rich. And then when I'm rich, I can do all the things that make me really happy. And if the ultimate goal was to be happy or be fulfilled in the first place, you don't have to sacrifice all those years to achieve something in order to have that. And I found that as I was going through my journey, I was unhappy for so much of it. And that wasn't worth it. There was just no amount of success or cash that could keep that unhappiness going for decades. And so those were just some of the things that I learned. And it was a very, very much an internal process, I think, looking inwards and being really reflective and trying to figure out yourself.
Yeah, I love that. The importance of the relationship itself is paramount. It's like one we can't kind of overlook, especially in these like times of upheaval. I think makes so much sense. I'd love to ask you both one last question, and maybe Mel, I'll start with you this time. What's something you wish you knew when you were first making a change to kind of go against the grain or shift gears?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say it's probably that there are not as many people watching as you think. A lot of people are really self-conscious. I'm often really, really self-conscious, and I think, well, if I do this, then what's everybody going to think? Or, you know, is it going to look bad? But if everybody is thinking about their life choices that way, they don't really have that much of an attention span to really be analyzing everything that you do. And yeah, of course, there will always be people sort of watching. But again, it's just that sort of spotlight on your bad choices is not as bright as you think that it is. And I wish I had known that sooner so that I wouldn't have maybe tortured myself as hard in terms of deciding what to do or what not to do.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Mel. That's a great insight. Torturing ourselves. I think we all have that kind of main character syndrome. Actually, no one's thinking. I think I was talking about this at a dinner this week. It's like no one's thinking about you. They're usually thinking about themselves and worrying about what you're thinking about. Yeah. Charlotte, what about you?
This analogy just came into my mind as you asked that question. I think I would put it as if I wanted to become a hawker and I studied chicken rice, it's okay if I want to sell prawn noodles next time. Like, I wish I knew that. Like, this is not going to be the be all and end all. If you're going to be in business school and you're going to choose marketing, it doesn't mean that you cannot sell prawn noodles next time. It doesn't mean that you cannot go do something else. That's something that I wish I knew.
That flexibility and like that fluidity. It's not sort of set in stone. I love that.
Yeah, nothing is set in stone. Like, if you put your mind to it, I can go and learn how to make prawn noodles,
Yeah.
I can go and learn how to do something different. Like, I've learned how to be a coach, right? Like, it's possible.
Yeah.
But something stops us, like, from doing that. And I think that's kind of like maybe the thing that you need to break through. Some of us may need to break through. Yeah. Takes time.
Thank you. Thanks, Charlotte. Would love now, I believe we didn't get to see our mentee answers. So I would love if Sarah or someone from the wonderful Uncommon team could share this. Thank you. So looking at all of your career stories or trajectories, I love this. Unexpected, roller coaster, progressive, illuminating. Oh, I love these. Doubtful, unexpected, challenging. Yeah, definitely see this. Not a lot of linear, if anything. So I hope that you all find comfort in the fact that for everyone here on this call, there's definitely the sense of riding the wave and it not always being perfect. And I will often say that we forever compare ourselves to how other people look on the outside. We compare our insides with other people's outsides. And I hope that this, for anyone going through the challenge of a transition at the moment, I hope that they can find comfort in this. Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to, I love ending our conversations with some actionable takeaways for everybody who's carved out some time for us today. Knowing what makes a successful career pivot is essential to continued career growth, even if that growth isn't the kind that moves you directly up a ladder. So some tips I would love to share and kind of sum up from what we discussed today. I think both of our speakers really tapped on the idea of like knowing your why. The first step I advise is someone going through a career change is to be radically honest with yourselves about why they want a career change. And these don't have to, this is coming down to kind of your needs. And maybe you are optimizing for financial stability sometimes. Is it the culture of the organization? Is it the people you work with? Is there something else bogging you down? I think really getting clear about what isn't working. So you can also look out for that in your next pivot as well. I think every role that we have, whether you like it or not, will teach you things about what you like and what you don't like about a working environment, about a job, about hiring manager. So keep those notes, and that helps you understand, what you enjoy, but also what is really important to you in that moment as well. I would say also to dip your toes in. I think sometimes, like I look at, for instance, me launching Uncommon, people always see that tip of the iceberg. You left your job in big tech and started a startup. And there's actually 100 1,000 micro steps that happen before that. And there's a lot of ways that you can de-risk a decision before you take it. So for me, I ran Uncommon as a dinner for female leaders, a safe space that was kind of between the home and work, from 2019 alongside my role. And that's also de-risking it for yourself to find out, okay, if this is something I want to do, but de-risking it in terms of, is this something viable? Is it something that you want to be building as well? Before you make that definitive decision, you can try ways to experience it, experience what that position might feel like. Can you ask to shadow someone within your company if you're looking to change roles? Can you grab some coffee chats with people to really dive into beneath the veneer and understand, what their day-to-day is like? Is it really worth committing to this change? And that will only be able, you'll only be able to identify that once you know what worth is for you, what is important for you, as well. Is there some way you can dedicate some of your free time to focus on this project or experiment and lead with a sense of curiosity rather than a sense of perfection? And that's what I see often when people want to make changes, is that it needs to be perfect. And I can tell you, having gone through the entrepreneurial journey, is there were so many other ideas that I kind of dipped my toes in that I decided I wasn't interested in, or just wasn't the right fit for me. So I think that being okay with that is actually is actually a great kind of mindset to go into making a change with as well. And then finding the thread that connects to your previous roles. Sometimes it's only when we look back in hindsight that we can really connect the dots, but finding, I often say, for instance, my time in the music industry really taught me how to be an operator, because you were always landing in a new market in Mexico City, in South Africa, in Australia, and you'd have to just solve a problem. You'd have to be quite structured and execute really well. And that's something I brought with me into my career in tech when I was launching markets for Uber, that you are in a market and you have to kind of make it work and get things off the ground. So I think if you can find, whilst they're very different roles, very different industries, I think you can find those like overlapping and transferable skills and threads that you can bring with you to a pivot as well. It can often look like a 180-degree turn, but there is often kind of a red line that runs through all of it. I'd love to open the floor to our speakers, to Mel and Charlotte, to close off with a few tips that are really top of mind for you.
Charlotte, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yolanda, when you spoke about dipping your toes in and you spoke about de-risking, I think there's a practical side to this, right? That's important. So my de-risk factor is my husband, who has a stable job. And that allows me, right, with family commitments and whatnot, to be able to do this for a period of time. So understanding that this is not just a, woo, let's go, right, fulfilling my dream, but there are practical elements to it. And everyone has different contexts of what that would look like, right? So I totally agree with all the tips that you shared. I was nodding away. One thing I would share is that find someone to ride shotgun with on this journey, whether it's a trusted friend, someone who will listen to you with curiosity and not judgment, or a mentor, someone that you know has walked the path and you would like to emulate that path. Could be your boss, could be an ex-boss, could be just a family friend or someone, or a coach, right? Someone you can trust to help you see what you cannot see and be brutally honest and truthful with you. And my second tip is to read this book by Dr. Seuss called Oh, the Places You'll Go, and draw inspiration from that.
Love that. Thank you so much. I love that book.
I love that book.
What about you, Mel? Thank you.
That was really good. I would say the first tip that I would have is to put the word out that you are open to opportunities and conversations, and not just sit there and kind of figure out in a bit of a silo what you want to do and then go for it. It's just sort of like see what's out there, try things. So it's really similar, I think, Yolanda, to your experience in dipping your toes into a few different things, because sometimes something will pop up that is the right fit or would lead you towards that, or inversely inform you that, okay, well, you thought that this was a good idea, but actually it's not really working out. So I would say that that is the very first thing. And then the second one, I think, is again another sort of reflective exercise, which is, if you were on your deathbed, what would you regret not doing, or what would you regret doing? What is going to be the thing that's really important to you at the end of the day? And if you're able to come up with what you think it should be, that informs you which direction to sort of explore. So again, I think it's coming back really to asking yourself a lot of questions, that is just really focused on knowing who you are, and that's a skill. Like, that's effort. It takes time, it takes practice, and if you're able to do that, then you're able to pursue the things that really would make a difference to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mel. I love that. Thank you. What I will go to now, I know we're a little bit, we have a few more minutes for Q&A. Thank you so much to our speakers. I'm going to go through some of the questions that have been submitted. So the first one I have from Lipika is curious how we balance our need for financial stability and independence with a dream of working as an independent consultant and going solo. Ooh, this is a great one. Does either of the panelists want to take this question?
I'll take this. I'm working through it myself at the moment, so I will just share kind of like raw feelings about it. You need to put food on the table, so you need to make sure that you are financially stable. And if you find that you need to tap into your savings a little bit more than you had expected, give yourself a timeline. Like, this is how long it should take, right? Because you don't want to be a solopreneur or entrepreneur without being able to put food on the table. Like, you need to survive, right? So make sure that is taken care of. I think that is kind of like that practical step that needs to be done.
Yeah, I might just add on to that one, because it's definitely a question that I struggled with. I think I wanted to launch a business like years before I did. Like, I think like a lot of people, it like sits with you for a long time. But for me, you know, I didn't come from a wealthy family. I didn't have like a fallback. And so I had to sit down with myself and map out like, okay, what is the amount? What's the number? What's the number of like savings that I need to hit that I'm going to feel comfortable in taking? And for me, it was like, I'm going to give it a year. Like Charlotte said, I'm going to give it a year. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to go back and get a job in big tech. And yeah, I think it's mapping that out for yourself and kind of coming up with a bit of a financial plan for what your life is going to look like. And so that would be it. I think that's also where the de-risking piece can come from, is okay, then maybe you're, say, not going, like you talked about independent consulting. Maybe you're not gonna, sometimes I think we look at paths as these false dichotomies, that it's like either black or white. And actually, sometimes there is a middle path that you can explore. And so what is the kind of MVP, the minimum viable product that you can do to test it out? And maybe it is, you know, having a bit of a side project, or exploring, you know, there's a lot of platforms that have popped up for kind of fractional work, and maybe building a profile there, and seeing, and again, having these thresholds. So, okay, maybe when I'm making 5,000 a month from my side hustle, then I'm going to feel comfortable to leave. So knowing what those lines in the sand are, but also dealing, for me, I found the line kept moving as well. I had to deal with my own issues around scarcity and fear that wasn't actually to do with how much money was in my bank account. So I think that's a whole other webinar as well. I'm just going to look at our next questions, Mel. Yeah, we've got a lot of great questions coming in here. I'm going to take one from an anonymous person, but when you take a career break while preparing for a transition or just pausing because you need it, you get a lot of pressure, people checking in on LinkedIn, seeing you're not working, people ghosting you. How do you get detached from this pressure? Mel, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, interesting question. I would treat this as almost like going on vacation, where you sit on your vacation responder and you just mentally know that you're not going to be responding until you're back. And I guess it helps to know when you would be coming back to that as well. So give yourself some time. And then I think something else is just simply communicating that you're taking a little bit of a break. And yeah, find ways, I think, to funnel any people reaching out or checking on things. They will come back at some point, or you can go after those opportunities when you come back, but you don't have to be a slave to always being available there at any time, at any day. So I would say, yeah, just sort of time block that, and then just allow yourself to not be around.
Yeah, thank you, Mel. Yeah, I love that. We're just going to take one last question. Sorry, everyone. Actually, we're at time, so I'm sorry for everyone who submitted these amazing questions, but I am going to move on to our wrap up to keep everyone on time. I want to start by thanking our speakers for being part of the webinar. Both of you sharing so openly and vulnerably about your experiences through these pivots. I hope I can see from the comments how much it resonated with everyone. So thank you so much. I want to thank our attendees as well. Thank you. For carving out a slice of your day and attending this webinar. We hope you took away something from the discussion. Apologies if we weren't able to answer all the questions, but feel free to reach out to us on socials, and someone from the team will get back to you. We'll also be emailing you a recording of the webinar and share some of the resources we mentioned. I also have a call to action for anyone who is a female leader looking for the kind of support that they need through a transition. This conversation is a taster of the kinds of topics that we discuss at Uncommon through our peer coaching sessions. And thanks again, Charlotte, for that wonderful endorsement. If you want the opportunity to connect with the community, to have that sounding board of like-minded female leaders, we've opened our wait list for our next cohort's applications. If you wish to be part of this, or if you know someone who you think could be a fit, feel free to send them the link in the chat. In the meantime, I hope everyone has a wonderful day, that you can feel a sense of clarity and guidance in managing a transition. But thank you again to our speakers, and thank you to the amazing Uncommon team who made this happen. Take care.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.